full name is Philip Ray Turnbull. I go by Phil. I'm 60 years old. When I turned 16, I went down and joined the local volunteer fire department. And yeah, I was a certified apparatus operator and an EMT by the time I graduated from high school and ran off to college. What attracted me to it was the red lights and sirens and the fact that I thought that girls might think it was cool. But beyond that, I wasn't in the profession very long before I really fell in love with it and realized that that was the path I wanted to take my life. Yes, while I was still in high school. This vehicle had overturned and was just a few feet offshore in about 3 or 4 feet of current that wasn't moving very fast, but just on the outboard side towards the center of the river was the main vector current. And I could tell from the perspective I had that the car was sitting on a ledge. And I was nervous about whether or not the car was going to stay there. And I remember, because I was a recreational rafter, I knew enough to know that they were in a considerable amount of danger. But what occurred to me right then, and it just hadn't really before, I don't know why, because now it's a glaring blind spot. But up to that time, I didn't have any concern about my staff having access to water rescue gear or any knowledge. Anyway, I also didn't know how they should have done it right. I just knew that, well, I'd certainly feel better if they were in a PF. And I knew enough to be nervous, and in fact, to the extent that I was almost sick to my stomach until they were safely back on shore. And so at that time, I began looking for curriculum. I mean, it was very specific. I wanted to know how I should have done that rescue correctly.
All right. Name is J. Michael Turnbull. I go by Mike. 64 years old. So you should never retire when you're a type A personality, because you just look for problems and things to get into. So he calls me up one day and he says, "This is the best training I've ever had. You got to come up and look at it," because the guy is not a businessman. He has no concept of business on how to run a business, but he's got this great training program. So I went up, sat through about half a day of it, and at the bar that night, I bought the company.
My name is jbrett Turnbull. I'm 37 years old. Grew up in Oregon, Running River. I spent 5 years in the military, where I was kind of first introduced to technical rescue. I've been a full-time Rescue 3 instructor for about 7 years now, and I've traveled to Belize, Haiti, Dubai, and most recently China, and doing Rescue 3 swift water training.
All right. I am Margaret Mason. I'm 32 years old. I live in Talent, Oregon. I'm co-owner of Alliance Training LLC. I started off as an intern with Alliance 2014. I just took half of the company in January. My background is in psychology, and that's where I kind of realized I had an edge in business. Business is people, and knowing people is an advantage. Alliance is a training provider of Rescue 3. So Rescue 3 is the certifying body. So we buy our certifications through them, and then we actually put on the training.
Okay.
Like we, in every way, shape, and form, where we have similar, our end goals are the same. How we get there is totally different, and we fill in the gaps, and we don't miss things being partners, because we are on the same page, and we always maintain that we have each other's back, even though sometimes it may not feel that way to the other because it's going the exact opposite, but we always end up at our goal.